Back inside of Blender, we can rename our material. Let's just call it gemstone. And the first part of the material I want to explore is actually going to be the third observation from the reference. It's that cloudiness, but more importantly, how to manipulate what's inside the material. So how can we manipulate things towards the center of the object versus things towards the outer surface of the object? And to do this, we're going to use a special node that you can find and download for free on cgcookie.com. If you go to resources and we're looking for utility node groups, and click the download files and in this button right here. And once that's finished, we'll look in our downloads folder and let's just unzip that. And now that it is unzipped, back to Blender, we'll go to File, Append, and we're looking for the downloads folder, utility node groups, look for the only.blend in that folder, and we're looking for node tree absorption. And once you append that, it should be available in our Shift-A Add Node menu under Group, CGC Absorption. Now this value is special in that I can't really see what it's doing at a surface level, which I usually check by plugging it directly into a viewer node, which I need to enable via the Node Wrangler add-on. So if you go to your user preferences to the add-ons tab and type in Node, you should see Node Wrangler. It's included with the official build of Blender. And we'll check that on. And now Shift-Control clicking on our absorption shows that it's just white. And that's because it's dealing with values inside the geometry. Applying that to the surface doesn't work. But we can plug it into our glass BSDF. So if we do that and then Shift-Control click on glass, you probably won't see much difference. But if we start to adjust the scale, let's try 10. You can see that it starts to darken. And what's maybe not so obvious is that it's actually darkening from the inside out. If we jump up to 20, you can see it happening a little more, and then 50, you should be able to see it fairly clearly now. Although if I further manipulate this with a Shift-A converter color ramp, now we can manipulate these values a little more intuitively. Let's bring down the white towards the outer edge, and you can see now that the center of this crystal is very black and the outside is clear. So that's the kind of information we're getting from the absorption node. But where it gets really interesting is when we use this as a factor to mix different shaders. And remember, this will only really work with shaders that are compatible. So that's glass and that's translucent. If we hit Shift-A, shader, translucent, and also the transparent node works as well. But for this material, we're going to be using translucent. Now, if we plug that in by itself, Shift-Control click on translucent, you can see a little bit of the effect. You can see that the edges are bright and the inside is darker. But what I really want to do with it is add a Shift-A mix node, shader mix node. I'm sorry, shader mix shader node. And let's unplug the absorption value from translucent and glass. And let's make our translucent color something very noticeable like a blue. Okay, and we're going to put that in slot number 1, glass in slot number 2. The reason being, slot number 1 is going to be controlled by the black value, which we saw was in the center of our object, and then the white value will control what's in slot number 2. So when I plug this in, we should get the blue translucent on the inside and the glass on the outside. Now we don't see that terribly explicitly at the moment. Let's try bumping the scale down to 20. And then adjusting the black value, let's pull that up. And then the white value, let's pull down. And the more extreme I make this, you can see just how clear the translucent is on the inside and the clear glass is on the outside. And this is a very powerful tool for achieving the gemstone-like look. Now, it doesn't look like a gemstone yet, but if we switch the color back to a white, now we're starting to see that kind of cloudiness that I pointed out in the reference images. And so that's attribute number 3 that we talked about. In the next lesson, we'll look at getting those complex refractions.